Welcome to TKO, also known as
Trending with Keisha and Ori.
If it's trending, we're talking about it. What up, everybody, and welcome to the TKO podcast, where if it's trending, we're talking about it. I'm Keisha. That's Ori. What's up, Ori?
What's going on, Keisha?
Nothing much, you know. Quarantining and chilling.
I hear you. Obviously, we are doing our social distancing, so we haven't had opportunity to do a podcast in a while. But thanks to this new technology, we found a way to keep the podcast going. The quarantine was going to stop us. You know what I mean?
All right.
So one thing that was that we desperately needed because there was no sports was thank God for the Jordan documentary, man. So. Basically, we, as we talked about, there were like 4 things that we thought, were trending and whatnot, Keisha. So, you ready to get into these 4 trending topics?
Yeah, I mean, but first of all, I think it was a very timely documentary, and thanks to the sports guys that ESPN had this in the can, because it really kind of kept people, who are going to really miss basketball. It gave us something to look forward to. And so, I mean, to look back on the old basketball, the old NBA was really something special, especially when, like you were saying, this quarantine and, sports would be something that would kind of keep your mind off of all the negative stuff that's happening right now. So just from an entertainment standpoint, I think it held up to all the hype, and I was skeptical about that. I wasn't sure that it was, but I thought it was really it was good to look back on that, man. But yeah, let's get into these. A lot of stuff started trending as the series played on. It's over now, the 10-part series, and but the top 4 for us, and not necessarily in any order, but just a lot of controversial things came out of that. Sorry, y'all, I'm being a mom. Yeah, he too old for a bottle. Mind your business. But a lot of controversial stuff actually came out of this documentary, and when I think we mentioned this when we did our little live, when the documentary first started, we did our Instagram live. We were saying how Jordan did when he was doing his tour for the documentary, that he was saying he felt people were going to hate him. And from the first 2 episodes, we really didn't get that vibe. But as we've gone along, a lot, and now, especially now this is over, a lot of controversial things have come out of it. But the top 4, in no particular order, Bulls management. Ori, I don't really have a lot to say about Bulls management. I've said this in the Instagram live. They're idiots. Jerry Krause. He deserved every negative word said about him. You can give him credit for putting a team together, but the team had to build the chemistry. The team had to go out there and play. The team had to bring home those chips, particularly Jordan, Pip, and Phil. But you want to say some kind words about Jerry, so.
I mean, yes. I mean, obviously, Krause was made to be the villain in this Jordan documentary. I know they call it The Last Dance, but this was a Jordan production. This was a Jordan documentary. So obviously, Jerry Krause was made to be the villain. I think from the comments that he made, as far as
you don't think he earned that title, though? You don't think he earned that title, the villain?
No, I don't.
He wanted to be the villain, because how else would he have been in the spotlight?
Well, and as we're going to touch on later on in our discussion here, is that sometimes the ends justify the means. I mean, that man put together 6 championships. At the end of the day, it's a champion. They're champions because of Jerry Krause. You know, you got to get there. He put it together. Like I was saying in our live podcast, like Tony Montana, who put this together? Me. That's who. He put it together.
But he created a monster, and once he couldn't control that monster, particularly Jordan, because Jordan became bigger than the team, you know, almost bigger than the NBA, because as I think it was David Stern who said it, that in the 80s, the NBA was only in 80 plus countries. By the 90s, it was in 200 plus countries. So Jerry Krause and all his Napoleon complex couldn't compete with that. But
why gotta be Napoleon?
He's short. He was little. He was a little person.
What does that do with anything? The little person put the whole team together. So
like in you can't say what does that have to do with anything. You know, from a psychological, not just because he's short. I mean, you're one of the few short people who. Sorry, but you one of the few short people who don't walk around like that. First of all, I know a lot of short people, and they all very angry. But there are people in this world who have deficiencies, and they put themselves in different positions, especially careers, where they can take that power back. So it, you know, I say it in a flipped way, but it is an actual thing. And I think the fact that he did it in public, the fact that he did it at the beginning of a season, the fact that he did it when they were winning was based upon his insecurities, and he couldn't get past one man, or I'm not going to make it about race, one man or a group of men, a small part of the organization being bigger than the organization, especially if it wasn't in the limelight, in the spotlight, that he put them together. Because that wasn't the headline. The headline was never Jerry Krause put them together. You know, that was behind the scenes, but that was his job to do that behind the scenes. And he couldn't take them overtaking the fact that he put them together. I mean, a lot of people put a lot of good things together. You don't always get.
He put a dynasty together. That's not, you know, that man put a dynasty together. So, but I understand, you know.
You finish making your point. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I understand your psychology. You know, I believe you actually have a degree in psychology, so I understand it. But I think Masters, excuse me. Masters.
Thank you. Thank you.
But I think you're looking at it wrong. The insecurities, you're right. I think it's no. Listen how I see this psychology. I don't have a degree, but listen to this. It's not the Napoleon complex, but it's man ego that has a lot to do with it, right? No, it's ego. He wanted to be, first of all, he just wanted to be he wanted to be respected. So Keisha, we from Philly. How many people have died because of respect or non-respect? Right? You stepped on my shoe, you disrespect, you talk to me a certain way. Yeah, but it's all about respect.
He was a corporate exec. He did his job. Man. That's like, I'm a mom, right? So, Ori, you see me feeding my baby? You see me feeding my son? Go ahead. You come on now. You see me feed like I'm supposed to feed him. You don't get credit for doing your job.
No. He just, I just think he wanted respect. That's all I'm saying. He wanted respect, and he says you saw throughout the documentary, they literally disrespected him. First of all, this was their boss. Okay, they literally disrespected him. So that hurt his feelings.
Right, but that started with Pippen. That started with him not respecting them. He didn't show Pippen a lot of respect. He wanted them to know they were disposable. He wanted them to know they were disposable. And
Yeah,
they
for sure.
that. So, I mean, I see your point. You give them, even at the end, Jordan and Pippen, they all gave him credit for putting it together. He also
After the fact.
He also destroyed it.
Yeah. I mean, so I just think real quick, because I know we got to get to the other topics. I just think real quick, it was disrespect. He wanted to be part of the team. And he just wanted some credit. So just on some old real, just man, human being, whatever. He just wanted to be respected and be part of the club. You know what I mean? And he didn't get it from them. And real quick, I think the owner, Jerry Reinsdorf, he gets off scot-free with this. He was the owner. He could have said no. He could have kept it going as long as he wanted. But he trusted Krause.
Found out he offered Phil to stay. Remember? And he was shocked by it. And then Phil said, "No, it's not fair to Jerry." So it's still Jerry Krause.
But by that, and I look at that as two ways. So number one, Jordan could have stayed. He didn't need to have Phil. And number two, I think Phil felt
he wanted Phil.
Yeah, he wanted Phil.
Ready to go.
I think Phil was ready to go. It was too late. Phil was like, "Okay, well, you don't need me." But here's the thing. You know why?
You can't dog me.
The same thing. Huh?
He was like, "You can't dog me for a whole season." Like the Reinsdorf guy, he should have stepped in and shut Jerry down before it got to that point. If he was going, unless he was just waiting to see if they won the championship.
Yeah, he was waiting. Yeah, I think he was waiting to see. But here's the thing. I think that Krause, the reason why him and Phil went apart is because Krause picked him. Krause picked him out of obscurity. You saw. So Krause was like, "Yo, dude, I got you."
Like he had, like the thing about Krause is he could see potential. He's a good, and that's what
he could see greatness.
He could see potential, and he saw potential. So the fact that you were right, I mean, Phil made that. I think everything became greater and bigger than what he expected, and he couldn't handle it.
Yeah, that's true. As a doctor, well, I like I said, I just think that I think it came down to respect for Krause, the lack of respect, and I think that the owner gets off, scot-free here. But it's time to move on to the next topic, Keisha.
That was kind of a trending topic throughout the whole documentary with his teammates too, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yep, for sure. So let's get into the retirement. You know what I mean? Like, what were your thoughts on his first retirement? Obviously he was tired, the death of his father, wanting to play baseball. Tell me your thoughts about his first retirement.
I think what we saw was something of a phenomenon happening. There never really been a global superstar the way Jordan was becoming a global superstar. So he had to navigate all of that. Thank God there wasn't social media, because I'm sure we would have much more information. But it was something that no one had ever had to deal with before. As they showed, wherever he was, there was a crowd, leaving the hotel, getting to the stadium, in the locker room, going to the floor, during the game, after the game, coming back, then the press. Those pictures of the press circled around him. You barely see that now because there's so many superstars, but Jordan was the first and the biggest, and it was global. So he had to navigate that. In all that, he was becoming a champion, one of the greatest players to ever play, singularly focused. So now he's like, well, I got to deal with all this other stuff. I can't just win championships and be good enough. And then he gambles. As he said, not because he was addicted, but because it was a relief, the same way Dennis had to go off and be crazy. His escape was gambling or golf. And he said he never bet on the team. He only bet on himself. And then on top of that, then his father gets killed. So now his father get killed because he's a gambling addict. He owes some random person a debt, and he's on his third championship. And I think, like we see later on, he just was tired. He needed a mental break, but he still wanted to be great and challenge himself. And so he went to his other passion, which was also an ode to his father because his father loved baseball. And I think it was what he needed. It leaves us questioning whether if he left or not, could they have won the championships in that retirement year and that throwaway year when he came back? Could he have gone to the major leagues if baseball didn't have their lockout? So it's a fascinating time in his career to see, because no matter what he was doing, he wanted to be great. And he wanted to be allowed to be great. And I think at that point, after winning that third championship, he felt like nobody wanted him to be great. You know, when he was losing, people wanted him to be great. But then when he was the best, everybody was trying to make him not great anymore. So, you know, I can't imagine what kind of mental toll that takes.
Yeah. I think he was very tired. You could just see it. First of all, the first retirement comes after 3 championships, but you still have to count the 7 years it took to get there. So you're talking 10 years.
Yeah.
So you're talking about.
I just forgot it.
Yeah. Right. So you're talking. I mean, think about it. You're talking from the time he got cut from his high school team to being an All-American, a McDonald's I believe Jordan was a McDonald's All-American, going to University of North Carolina, hitting a shot as a freshman, you know, help winning a championship against a great Georgetown team, to come to Chicago, be Rookie of the Year, you know, now also a global brand with Nike as he started to grow. And then he breaks his foot his second year, but he wants to make the playoffs with a crappy record, but he wants to win. He's not about that tanking stuff.
Right.
And then to give it to Larry Bird, you know, and Kevin McHale and all the boys, you know, to give it to them, then it's like, okay, he's on a scene. Like, this dude dropped 63 in the Boston Garden. Like, okay, this dude is for real. He is not, if he's not the best, he's going to be the best.
Right.
And then, you know, as he gets through, you know, finally winning a series, hitting the walk off.
Having to go through Detroit.
Then hitting the walk off. Right. I was about to get there. Hitting the walk off shot to get clipped, and then go through Detroit, who had to get through the Lakers and the Celtics and the Sixers and all those, you know what I mean, for them to come up. And then to, you know, finally, as you get through Detroit, and then once you win, and then you do the, you know, the dream team, and then you come back and then you win another one, because back to back was it. He was cool. He was pretty much happy with back to back. You know what I mean? Then he was like, well, you know what? If I do this third, then that's it. And so I think he was like, you know what? At that point, it was like Magic didn't do it, Bird didn't do it, obviously Dr. J, Isaiah didn't do it. Now that I got 3 in a row, I'm solidified. I'm done. You know what I mean? So, and then the death of his father, in my opinion, that was it. That was it. He needed a break. You know, so real quick, outside of the retirement thing, I think some people believe that if he had not retired, the Bulls would have won like 8 straight. I don't see it, because he was so tired. They would have lost. So I think him taking a break actually helps in the fantasy and the facade of,
yeah, definitely.
You know, when people debate when they debate Jordan 6-0 in the finals, if he didn't leave, he wouldn't have been 6-0.
Right.
He would not. He would have lost. Somebody would have gotten him.
He probably
mentally
knew.
Tired.
He knew if he didn't rejuvenate, he was like, there was no up from there. You know what I mean? Like, when he came back, he knew he could go up. But after that third chip, I agree with you. He knew, because he's smart enough. He's that kind of basketball savant. He knew his mental strength, he knew his physical strength, and he knew he was drained. And you could see it And at the end of episode 6, that's the first time you see emotion. And it wasn't just his dad. It was because people didn't appreciate him for what he brought to the game. He was like, you mad at me because I love the game? Like, it broke his heart. You know what I'm saying? So I think he knew.
Right.
Whether or not he knew he was going to come back, we don't really know. But I think he knew at that point there was no more up for him in basketball. So you're right. It does. You know, I said, they have won those other two? Probably not, but it leaves that fantasy of, man, if he never left, we would have had 7, 8, 9, 10.
Exactly. All right, Skeets, you know what that means? That means we can go to the next topic. A lot of people is definitely talking about Mike punking people. You know what I mean? So, was Michael a bully? Was he a motivator? Was he a bad teammate? You know, to me, that is obviously one of the hottest things that people was talking about. You know what I mean? Like Horace Grant and Steve Kerr and all that stuff. So, you know, what say you?
Listen, the type of player he was, that's the type of coach I am. And I coach middle school girls. Like, I'm chumping you. I'm kicking your book bag. I'm throwing your chair off the bench. Listen, I loved it. And it's like, if you don't have that passion, why are you on the floor? And that's all. Like he said, like, if I didn't think you could do it, I wouldn't even mess with you. I wouldn't even talk to you. But once you earned his respect, it was like he trusted you. And when you had his trust, that was all you needed. And it gave them confidence. But I think there was a method behind his madness. And like you said, with Jerry Krause, the means justify the ends. I disagree. But in this case, the means always justify the end because you ended up winning the chip. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think he was a bully. And for grown men after the fact, years later, to be like he was a bully, he chumped me. You know, like Steve Kerr was the only one who took it like a man. He got punched in the face and was like, thank you, Mike. You woke me up. I'm ready to go now.
No.
But in all honesty,
Scott Burrell,
he picked on him. He said he had the potential to be great, but he didn't want to put in the work. So he don't respect you. You don't put in the work. Like that's grown man/woman basketball right there. Listen, I loved it. And if I could bop somebody upside the head with a basketball, one of my girls to get their mind right without having to deal with their parents, I would have did it.
See, that's why Jordan is not a good GM and was never as good as a GM as Jerry Krause. You know what I mean? Because that's the type of stuff where you think that is the only way to get the best out of somebody, right? So for him to think that Scott Burrell had so much potential, Scott Burrell was a role player. He was not even he wasn't like the best player that ever came out of UConn or anything like that. He was a role player. So I get it. It was little motivational tactics and whatnot. You know what I mean? I get that. I get that. He wanted to tell Steve Kerr, like, hey, Steve, on his second run, you didn't win anything from the jump, so you guys can't be happy. You know, you got to learn. You got to earn your respect. You know what I'm saying? So, I think that has a lot to do with it. So, I mean, a lot of people think that that since the results happened, that obviously it was the best way. But I mean, to be honest, no, it's not bullying, because to me, if you really want to be almost the definition of bullying, obviously is a bully is somebody who's insecure in themselves, so they have to pick on what they deem as the weakest, small person to build themselves up. And Michael Jordan wasn't that
way. The only time he felt that way was with Steve Kerr, because he said he was the smallest guy on the court, and he called him and apologized at home for that. So you're right, he couldn't be a bully, but like how you just said, that's the only way to approach. I disagree with that, because he acknowledged that he couldn't yell at every guy a certain way. He couldn't talk to every guy a certain way. Now, in that mind, that meant to him, well, if I can't talk to you like that, then you're not worthy of being on a team. But he also gave Phil Jackson credit for his approach to Dennis Rodman. And you got to give him credit because he never, and maybe he thought because Rodman might whoop his ass or whatever. But I'm just saying, he knew that Rodman had to be handled with kid gloves. And because he showed up and performed, he didn't have to approach Rodman that way, although he could have, because half the time Rodman was on the basketball court in pajama pants, which I don't understand. So, you know what I'm saying? So he did, to call him a bully is unfair, and unless you're just trying to be negative, because he did try to manage it, but he felt he was doing what was best to get results out of the grown men he was playing with.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, it was, it's his way of it was just his style, you know what I mean? So yeah, he's not a bully, but he was mean as hell. You know what I mean? So
that kind of shocked me because I thought, like, growing up, I always thought Reggie Miller talked the most trash, but no, it was Jordan. It was Jordan.
Yeah, and Larry Bird was also a trash talker. You know what I mean? Back in the day, apparently. So
back it up.
Yeah, somewhat. I think Jordan stepped to the people he could step to. Like, he would have never stepped to Charles Oakley that way, and Oakley was his boy. Like, him and Oakley are cool. But he would never, ever, because Oakley would have drilled him.
You mean Horace Grant? The team?
Oakley was with the Bulls.
I don't think he had that standing. He didn't have that. He didn't have that right at that point, right? He wasn't that guy just yet. Everybody knew he was.
By year two, he was. I mean, he had one rookie year, and by year two, he was. I mean, he had broke his foot, and then he wanted to come back in. You know what I mean? And play. So I would say, yeah, because I think Oakley got traded in '87, and then that's when they got Bill Cartwright. That's when Krause drafted Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant. So yeah, I'm just saying if Oakley had stayed all the way through, he would never talk to Oakley that way. He never talked to Scottie that way. He never would talk to Dennis Rodman that way. You know what I mean? So I think he knew he had selective people to pick on. You know what I mean?
Well, some people deserve to be picked on, bro.
What's that? Your some people deserve to be punched in the face type thing.
Mm-hmm. Some people deserve to be punched in the face. Hashtag.
All right. So our last topic, on a serious matter, Mike, as an athlete or activist, a lot of people obviously brought that up because of the whole Harvey Gantt situation, and obviously as the global icon selling shoes, sneaker game. I just got me another pair of ones, Keish. But that's a whole nother subject.
They're not my favorite.
We're going to do by the way, people, we're going to do a sneaker podcast. I'm only going to talk about certain sneakers that I like, but Keisha's the sneakerhead, so she's going to school you on her sneaker game and whatnot. But anyway, Jordan as an athlete or an activist, what were your thoughts? What are your thoughts then about him then? What are your thoughts about it now? Is it fair, foul, criticism? Just, go ahead, get into it.
I guess all criticism is fair criticism, but as far as being an athlete or activist, we've touched on this a couple of times. We've done a podcast about being a role model or whatever. Jordan's, again, when he entered the league, there was no one like him. So no one was looking for an athlete to be an activist in basketball. Now, there was Muhammad Ali. There was the guy that's crazy now who in football, I forget his name.
That's crazy.
Yeah, he's like a Jim Brown.
Jim Brown is the man. Crazy. Okay.
Yeah, that guy. So there were other athletes who were activists, but again, none as big as him. None with the branding, none with the endorsements, none with the global recognition. So some say all those things should have made him more vocal. But again, what we've learned from this documentary is that Jordan was very singularly focused. And so his only thing he wanted to be great at, the only thing he was passionate about was basketball, winning championships, and making his money and preserving his brand. And if an activist doesn't fall into those things, because being an activist, you have to pick a side. So the quote that, Republicans buy shoes to when he wouldn't support Harvey Gantt, who was running for the Senate in North Carolina at the time against Helms. He said it in jest, but it was the quote that was put out into the world that made people say, "Oh, well, wait a second, what's up with Jordan? We buying his shoes, we supporting him, but he don't support us." But I don't even think his head was there. I don't, he said his mother and his father were pretty politically active, and his mother actually tried to ask him to endorse Gantt, and he was like, "No, that's not part of my brand. That's not my focus." But he did contribute silently, which obviously means something different than if you contribute publicly or endorse someone publicly. But I just think I'm not going to say whether it's right or wrong at that time. Obviously, I've had my moments where I was like, Jordan, he don't really care about nobody but his sneakers. That didn't stop me from buying the sneakers. So what does that say about me? But it was like, where is he? So I've always respected him as a player. But when LeBron came along, I was like, wait a minute, LeBron's the GOAT, because he's doing his thing on and off the court. Once Jordan retired, I was always like, where is he? Where's his voice? What does he think? You know what I'm saying? Like, this dude's the greatest basketball player of all time. Where was he? I wanted to hear from him. So it makes sense that everybody wanted to hear from him. But watching this documentary made it very clear that that's not who he was. And he has every right to not be that guy. I think now, especially since the death of Kobe, he has become more public with the things he's doing behind the scenes as far as supporting certain candidates and things like that. And, he has a right to evolve and be better. And he mentioned that he realized that he could have been, but he even says that's not where he was. So definitely back then he was more concerned about being an athlete than an activist. But it in pre-show talk, we talked about, does that mean that's why he was so great, because he was so singularly focused? Whereas some athletes nowadays, like LeBron, he's doing so many things off the court. Does that take away his focus on being the GOAT, being able to turn it on and off, and then saying, "I'm never turning it off"? That's what Jordan did. He never turned it off. He needed the smallest spark to get him going. I mean, he averaged 30 plus points his entire career. So, did his athleticism soar because his activism, he pushed it down? Maybe it was never in him. We don't know, but he was definitely more than an activist. I held it against him for a little bit, but getting to understand what his goal was during his time in the NBA, it makes more sense to me now. Not that I necessarily respect it, but I understand, and it makes sense, seeing the type of player he was.
Right. Yeah. I think as far as him being an activist or not out in front, I think because of this, as you saw through the documentary, how just he never had privacy. You know what I mean? Like everywhere he went, and he always had to he always like he was very conscious of the way he dressed, right? You know what I mean? So he's like, because he respected people enough, like, you know what, some people want to see me for the first time and / or only time. When they see me, I want that image to be pristine. You know what I mean? So all that was calculated. It was thought provoking. So he was like, when I'm out in public, this is what I want to see. But as you said, he did a lot of stuff in private. You know what I mean? So I think that's how he wanted to be. If he is an activist, I think he wanted to do it in private. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think he wanted to be out front. Maybe part one is because maybe he felt like, I'm not educated enough to even discuss these things. You know what I mean? I'm a ball player. I'm a driven basketball player. And when I'm not playing ball, I want to play golf. I want to play spades with my team. I want to play cards. I want to gamble. You know what I mean? I don't have. So I'm Michael Jordan. I'm the biggest icon in the world. I'm not like a regular, and it says I'm not even like a regular athlete. I'm like super athlete. You know what I mean? So I think for him to do all that and activism stuff, and he's really not passionate about it. Well, as as an African American man, you know what I mean. Like I don't, if that's not your thing, don't do it. You know what I mean? Don't pretend. Don't let people
judge for that because you would have been able to see that it wasn't genuine.
Right. Don't let people bully you. Don't people say, well, because there's a saying, obviously, to whom much is given, much is required, right? But you know what? No, at the end of the day, you have to do what's right for you. You know what I mean? So, I know that I heard a lot of people obviously talking about the Harvey Gantt situation, and his own mom. It's kind of his own mama said, "Please do this PSA with." I don't know. She said, "Please, but do this PSA with me," and he objected. But at the very least, he said, "You know what, Mom? I'm gonna contribute to the campaign." Now, some people are like, "Yo, dang, Mama Jordan asked you to do something. You couldn't do that for Mama. You couldn't take one for the team for Mama Jordan. You couldn't even do that." Man, that's effed up. You know what I mean? So, but he was like, you know what? That's something I didn't want to do. And honestly, on that particular point, to be honest, if I lived in North Carolina, why would I need an athlete to tell me to not vote for the African American candidate and to not vote for the racist candidate? Why would I need an athlete to tell me that? Why is Michael Jordan now going to draw me to the polls? Right. Now, people can say, well, maybe he could reach some white folks, and maybe if they had came out and voted because Mike said it, it could have stopped the other person from coming into office. I don't believe that. I don't believe that athletes, especially, well, back then, but even more now, this day and age, they don't change. For example, LeBron James, he campaigned for Hillary Clinton. He stood right next to Hillary on the stage and whatnot in Ohio, a very big swing state, as you know. And that she didn't win. It didn't have, white folks and black folks out there to get out there more because LeBron was out there. So I have this belief that Michael Jordan would have had an impact on and help swung the vote to keep a racist out of office. No, I don't believe that one bit. And as far as, him being a brand seller, I'm okay with that. And to be honest, Keisha, I did not buy my first pair of Jordans until he became a billionaire. So to me, that is the most impressive thing that I've ever seen Michael Jordan do, is him being a billionaire. And as somebody as African American, you know what I mean? Obviously, It is my dream to heck be a millionaire, but a billionaire, you know what I mean? That's something that if I don't get it, then in some way, if I can set a tone and set it for the next generation of my family, and my family at some point become, a billionaire. Like if I help start that, and it took 3 or 4 generations, if eventually at some point from me somehow that somebody becomes a billionaire, that's great. You know what I mean? So as far as the brand, you know what I mean? I don't need a social activist person to say, okay, well, I'm going to support you. I'm going to buy your clothes. I'm going to buy your sneakers. No, the sneakers are hot.
Coming from where he came from, that could have fueled his fire. Like, I'm going to protect my brand at all costs. I got kids. I got a wife. Y'all not messing up my money. And a lot of people think that way, especially people who make it out of poverty. They're very conscious of, building a legacy. And I think that's what he was. People call it selfish, but some people, sometimes you gotta choose yourself. And some people are willing to give it all up for the world. So I don't think, you can put athlete or activist, neither one is not better than the other, because they're two completely different things. One is to entertain, one is to inform. He chose to entertain the world and make his money. He didn't want to fight for the world at that time. And maybe he's fixing that now. Maybe.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, him being a billionaire, like I believe he's even funded, projects and whatnot. I think one of the things
he's doing a ton of stuff now.
Yeah, I mean, he even helped get Malcolm X the movie. He helped fund that back in the day. You know what I mean? Like he was with him and Oprah and a whole bunch of people. So you know what I mean? It's not like MJ has never done anything for the black community. It's not like the only thing he ever did was just sell sneakers and whatnot. You know what I mean? You know, um, like I said, you know, his life is a lot different than the normal athlete. Um, when you remember the greats, like if there's a, we could call them the Mount Rushmore of athletes and whatnot. You know what I mean? He's going to be up there. Is he going to be as equal to Muhammad Ali? No, he won't be equal to Muhammad Ali in the sense of the social activism because there was never anything that you know Mike didn't have to like he didn't have to put his life on the line or his career on the line for a topic or issue or something that happened like Muhammad Ali did. You know what I mean? But I mean, the man is an African American millionaire. There are not a lot of African American millionaires. In fact, I think you can count on your one hand, maybe two, as far as African American billionaires. It's only like 6 or 7. I mean, there are a lot of African born billionaires, but as
Right.
far as African American, there's not many. You know what I mean? So to me, that is a tremendous achievement. Even somebody who's a shitty GM like Michael Jordan was, he can't pick talent. You could pick talent better than Michael Jordan. You know what I mean? You know, of course you think so. But that's
Absolutely.
okay. But that's okay. That means he's flawed. He's not, you know what I mean? Like he's
Yeah, he's
flawed. You
not
know what I mean?
perfect. He's really
He's
not
not.
Black Jesus.
What you say?
He's really not Black Jesus.
No, he's not black. Now I hated that part because you know Black Jesus from North Philly. So you know I hated that part. Why are you shaking your head?
Because there's nobody
What?
Black but Black Jesus. There's like Jesus was actually Black, so there is no other Black Jesus. But I understand your basketball content. Like I understand that, but people because he has so much, people felt he should have given more. But you can't demand other people's money, thoughts,
Right.
time. You know, if they don't want to freely give it, it's not even worth the upset that you put on it. You know what I'm saying? So he wasn't
True.
obligated to do anything that, but he knew that this was going to be part of the controversy from the documentary. And I think he's had, like, to him, he's like, I've always done things privately, but now
Mm-hmm.
I guess I should start doing them publicly. And he doesn't have to, but
Right.
I think some of that is part of growth, getting older. I think his kids,
Right.
his kids from his first marriage have a lot to do with it. Because
Right.
they're more connected than he is socially, um, especially
Yeah.
through social media and whatever. So, you know, they're
Right.
from their interviews, they seem to be very open and honest with him. But there should never be any doubt about what he gave, because he gave. Whether or not you want to judge him for how much or whether it was done publicly, you have the right to do that. But at that time, like I said, I think his focus was on being an athlete and taking care of his family.
It's true. That's true. Yeah, I agree with you. Like I think that you know, he's focused on his craft. He was focused on being the best. He was focused on, you know, winning championships. He first of all he had to get past Jordan, not Jordan. He had to get past Bird and Magic and whatnot. You know what I mean? Like he was so focused on that other stuff that there was no time. And truth be told, there were not a lot of black athlete activists during that time during the '90s. I mean, obviously, you know, one of the biggest things that happened was like the LA riots and whatnot. You know what I mean? So, you know, Magic and those guys, they weren't out front from anything that I can remember. You know, so forgive me, I'm not from LA. You know, they weren't out in front. You know what I mean? Like, now obviously I remember Magic obviously dealing with the AIDS issue. He was out in front with that. So you know what I mean? But just I'm kind of thinking more of you know issues that affect the black community only.
Well, I think you also have to keep in mind that back then, because NBA players were like back then, most of the players who were activists were in single sports, like tennis players, Olympians, boxers. They weren't on a team. And I also think back then NBA players weren't looked at in an intellectual light. And I just think he would have set a precedent had he come out and been politically active, but because he would have been the first. But I don't know that it was on any basketball player's mind. And, when you guys drop comments, let us know whether or not there were other, I guess the Craig Hodges guy, which we'll talk about in the next episode when we talk about role players. But there was no one on his level globally who was being asked to do what people felt he should be doing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would say that obviously in the 60s and 70s, in the 60s, the team athletes, they did speak out. You know what I mean? Like Kareem and Jim Brown and Bill Russell, obviously. You know what I mean? Obviously, but it was different. Was for civil rights. You know what I mean? So it's definitely a little different. So you know what I mean? So all right. Well, I think that wraps it up for this first one. Hopefully everybody enjoyed it. Hopefully you will give us some comments, give us your feedback, tell us some topics and things that you'd like us to talk about. We're going to get obviously to another discussion of the Jordan documentary because it was so good. Like I said, we got a lot of cool episodes coming up. We're going to talk about sneakers. We'll talk about who?
The role players.
Role players. Yep. We're going to also talk about, if and when sports come back. Obviously, we haven't been able to talk about sports. So if it comes back, we'll discuss it. So it's a lot of stuff to discuss and whatnot. You know what I mean?
It's always something trending. So we always going to be talking about it. So just drop us your comments, your disagreements with Ori and your agreements with me. Obviously this podcast was a little longer because we were trying to wrap up, give a summary of the entire series, the 10-hour series. So we're going to try to keep it a little bit tighter for you guys, but we always want to try to keep you entertained, keep you thinking, keep you laughing, and just trying to keep you guys up on what's happening out there in the sports world, the political world, the quarantine world for now. So just drop us some comments, nothing negative because we'll block you. I don't got a ball to butt you in your head, so I'm gonna have to block you. And catch us on all social media platforms, wherever they have podcasts. If you like what you hear, share it. If you don't like what you hear, share it, because whoever you share it with might have a better sensibilities than you. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you guys for checking us out.
Cool. All right, everybody. Thank you. We appreciate you. We'll see you on the next podcast. Peace.
God bless.